What's up, everybody? It's your boy Upscale Stay Low, and you are now tuned in to Real Talk Podcast. And as y'all see right now, I'm in a whip. I'm actually working today, but today, episode number 2, I just want to touch bases on what it's like being a felon and how becoming a felon has really affected my life. Affected everything that I've been trying to do, everything that I wanted to do, everything I'm trying to do now or in the future. Just want to give you the whole rundown about being a felon and a moral of the story about that. So, before I really get into that, I just want to break down like how I became a felon. Okay, so back in my high school, 2012, I just moved out to Kentucky from Indiana, and I wanted a new life. I wanted to start over. Me and my mama, we wasn't getting along with each other. I felt like she was treating me like a kid. I had a curfew, and me, at the age I was at, I just felt like I shouldn't have a curfew. I felt like, I could handle responsibilities because of the people who I was around, the people who I invested my time in. They didn't have curfews. They mama allowed them to have that responsibility to really stay out late night, have fun. And at that time, I'm in middle school. I'm over there really a B honor roll student. I've always been good at school. And I was, I'm an outstanding athlete. I did a lot. But 2012, I think it was my freshman year. 2011, 2012 was my freshman year. And, I just wanted a different life. I wanted to go somewhere else and start over, meet new people, see what the world had to experience once I moved. So I moved to Kentucky from Indiana. And, my family, we really didn't have no money like that. Like, my family wasn't well off. Like, we struggled like a motherfucker. And, back then, you had parents that really couldn't do anything for their kids besides when tax time come. So, I was that nigga that, I always knew how to wear the clothes that I was given, because it wasn't the fact of what I was wearing, it was how I wear it. And if you a good motherfucker, if you know how to dress and shit, you can make the clothes look good instead of the clothes making you look good. So, I always knew how to dress. Long story short, whatever. I was struggling. Started smoking weed. And, I was just tired of asking my people every week for some money. Always, asking them, can I get some money to get high, pay my phone bill. Even though I had women doing that. Like, I was fucking on women, and, they was giving me that bag so I can get my hair cut, pay my phone bill, smoke my little weed, and just live my life, you feel me? But I ended up meeting some friends that are now like my brothers, and we are real close with each other. But I said fuck it, and I ended up started selling weed. And boy, when I started selling weed, that bitch started booming. Talking about, I remember back then when I used to have a whole block. Have my whole block. Talking about my whole block is damn near filled with motherfuckers pulling up, shopping. And back then, they had loud, they had gas, they had pressure. But, niggas wasn't really trying to afford that gas. Because that shit was 20 a gram, 15 a G. So, motherfuckers couldn't afford that. So, niggas was out here selling that mid. And that mid, that Reggie, That motherfucking shit was so fucking good. Talking about green popcorn looking good. You know, that shit was nice. It got a nigga high, did a job. So that's what a nigga started off with. Selling me it. I'm talking about having this bitch booming. So, you know, throughout my high school, I was over there acting a fool. I'm talking about, this how you knew I was getting money. Me and my niggas, we at the lunch alley cart, shopping, buying everybody food and shit. We hitting the mall. We one of the flyest niggas in school. Everybody gave us love, showed us love, you know. We was them niggas. But you know, I was doing my damn thing. I'm talking about on a whole different level. So, you know, I think it's around after high school, after I got my own car and shit, I was doing good. I was well off by myself, doing my own thing. Never really had a job like that. But, you know, I'm cool doing my little thing. I ain't got a problem. I think like after my high school, once I graduated and I really hit that 18 to 21 mark, I ended up catching my first little case. And it was something small. It was really disregarding the stop sign, possession of marijuana type of shit. But when they caught me and they pulled me over, in Kentucky, you don't get in trouble for real. If you're not a felon, you can't get in trouble for having a gun. So when they charged me, they couldn't charge me with a gun as far as carrying a concealed deadly weapon because it's an open carry law in Kentucky. So they smacked me with possession of marijuana. Boom. But instead of convicting me of that or, you know, anything of that nature, they ended up enhancing the charges. They were still a misdemeanor, but they enhanced it up to a higher and misdemeanor. So they hit me with trafficking because, you know, allegedly they found the scales. They found everything that basically could result into a conviction of trafficking. But I always had like an opinion because, you know, they could have hit me with drug paraphernalia, which they did at first. They hit me with possession of marijuana, drug paraphernalia, and they took my car, they took the gun, the weed, they took everything. But, you know, they ended up enhancing. Me not having the knowledge that I have now, the understanding of the law, I was just young. And, you know, when you young, you're going to have that mindset of listening to what these rappers and shit be talking about. Like, I listen to Scotty Kane a lot. And Scotty Kane used to say, fuck it. And not only Scotty Kane, but everybody else, like Scotty Kane and some other rappers, you know, they say, fuck it, they gonna get a lawyer that money. And have the lawyer do his thing. So me not being knowledgeable of the law, I was basically putting my life in somebody else's hands to get me off. And the whole time, they was really out there fucking me over, making me plead guilty to anything. So I ended up pleading guilty to trafficking marijuana, which was a misdemeanor. And what I didn't know was that if you have two traffickings, or say you get convicted of a trafficking in marijuana, the second time you get charged with trafficking marijuana, it can be enhanced to a Class D felony, which is 1 to 5 years. So, now with that being said, once they seen what they had confiscated off of me and seized off of my person, they called I think it was a half a pound of some weed or a pound of weed. They got me with the gun. They caught me with the money. And if you look up, if everybody really know my real name and shit, you can look me up. I'm really deal on the motherfucking news. So I didn't know, again, that when you get charged the second time for trafficking marijuana, dealing in marijuana, whatever the case may be, it can be enhanced to a Class D, which is 1 to 5. So, fast forward, they already got they didn't know who I was. So, once they seized that for that off of me, they became suspicious. Now they're diving into my life. They trying to see who this nigga is. How is it that he's doing this, that, and the third, and we don't know about him? Because where I was from, it's a small city. Henderson was real small. So everybody knows everybody. Even the cops know who's doing what, this, that, and the third. And, long story short, they didn't know who the fuck I was. Like, if you look at Paid in Full, they didn't even know who the fuck, what was his name? Not even Paid in Full, I'm gonna say, American Gangster. They didn't even know who fucking, what's his name was. I forget his name, so don't quote me on it. Frank Lucas. They didn't even know who he was until they seen him at the boxing match, and he come in flashy and this, that, and the third, and he gets on his bitch's ass because she done wore this $30,000 mink coat, this, that, and the third. So, they didn't even know who I was, and so when they caught me, now they know this young nigga doing this thing. So they started trying to see who I was, take a look into my life and whatnot. So, fast forward it, 2018, 2019, I'm going to say, this is when I was a small time doing my thing on a high level. Now I'm like a big fish. I'm a big fish, so when it comes to being a big fish, you out here really doing your thing. I'm really out here getting to some chicken, talking about bands. And if you look at some of my old videos, you will see taking trips, buying all these different type of cars. I'm living that lifestyle. So they always had an idea or was suspicious, like I said, of who I was, but they can never really catch me in any type of big trouble. Meaning, like, all right, I might get pulled over here and there. It might be for a little traffic stop. It might be a little possession case here and there, but they could never stick it on me. Meaning, like, I would get a good lawyer, get it dismissed. They knew I was trying to do this, that, and the third, but they really could never pinpoint it to me. So main thing they can really get me with, like I said, with little traffic stops and shit. So they was upset that they could not really get me with no large amount of drugs. If they pull me over and they smell any type of weed, they like, man, where it's at? They trying to get it, but they couldn't get it because I always tucked this shit. I always hid this shit, And police only have so much of a protocol when they doing a search on you in your vehicle. They can only go so far. So the places that they not able to search is where I'm putting it at. And no, I'm not putting nothing in my ass, none of that shit. But I'm hiding it in places that they are not allowed to search. It goes beyond a policy. So I always been a type of nigga who is always aware of what's going on, and I only do business with people that I get a good vibe from, or they don't give me that type of vibe where I think they police or shit like that. So police, what they used to do is they would try to have a motherfucker come shop with me. And at the time, I was, like I said, I'm so self-aware that I can automatically determine and detect somebody's either an informant, somebody's working, or if they just speak too vague, or they just too open with the way the shit has planned or the transaction has happened, I don't fuck with them no more. Like if they hit my lineup and they talk a certain way, I didn't serve them. So you gotta speak the way I like being spoken to, and I've only dealt with a certain amount of people. So they could never get me as far as a hand-to-hand transaction. But they knew I was, at that time they started having a realization, like they knowing that I'm really that nigga. I'm really doing my thing. So, like I said, fast forward in 2018, 2019, there's this female who I was fucking on. You know, I'm out here dicking her down. And we ended up separating. She wasn't nothing that was really like a significant other. You know, she really wasn't somebody I'm fucking with like real hard. Like she's not nothing exclusive. She's not, you feel me? She wasn't really nothing to me like that. She was just somebody, you know, I was hitting here and there. Plus I was in high school at that time when I was fucking with her. So she was just like a little fling. I'll pull up at her crib early in the morning before I head off to school. I'm fucking her, and then I'm sliding. You know, she's shopping with me, woo. But that's when the drug epidemic came out, and, you know, people started getting addicted to hardcore drugs and meth, heroin, all type of shit. They've always been like that, but, you know, now it's starting to be publicized. People are starting to notice, and people are starting to be recognized for doing drugs. And like I said, people have always been doing it, but it wasn't showing. People always kept up with their hygiene. So now that people are doing drugs later on, it's starting to really be shown. People ain't keeping up with their hygiene. You know, they letting themselves go, getting real skinny, this, that, and the third. So the chick I was dealing with, she ended up getting high on them hardcore drugs. And I say about 2018, 2019, she became an informant. So mind y'all, the police know about me, but they think I'm a small town person. And when they catch me, they really can't get nothing off of me. It might be some shake they find, or the big shit that they was trying to look for, they couldn't get off of me, or they didn't know where it was at. So, you know, I wasn't on the radar like that. I was always under the radar, but I was always doing big fish shit. And people, like, niggas will know that I was really out there getting to some money. So instead of, you know, trying to do good business with me, I had motherfuckers always trying to get over on me, charge me too high prices, this, that, and the third. And the main reasons was, we know you can get it off. So if you knew I could get it off, why was you charging me such a high number? So, you know, again, she was out there getting high. I guess the little bitch done got in some trouble and shit and became an informant. From my knowledge, she done got pulled over with some ice. She got drunk, was getting hit back to back. And so, you know, I think 2018, 2019, I had pled guilty to some possession charges. And remind y'all again, like, I didn't have no knowledge of the law, so I would just give it to my lawyer, and I'm thinking my lawyer is doing me justice because I'm not going to jail. I'm not really dealing with these people. I'm probably on unsupervised probation, so I'm still doing my thing. So, you know, like I said, 2018, 2019, the bitch ended up trying to set me out. So 2018, 2019, I had pleaded guilty to a DUI because I got stopped at a roadblock, and I was smoking a backwood, getting high. And they ended up charging me with a DUI. And me not knowing any knowledge of the law, I could have really beat it because they wasn't really testing for any marijuana. So they couldn't tell me how much marijuana I was inhaling when they was when the way that they do their DUIs and shit, they'll make you go get a blood test, see if there's any alcohol in your system. So they charged me having over 0.2% of alcohol in my body when I don't drink. Like, I don't drink at all. Like, alcohol was never something that I really was into, and I was a big smoker. So I could have beat it, but I ended up pleading guilty, and I had to do like 30 days in the county, and I was like on 4 months. My license was suspended for 4 months, but I was able to get a hardship license, which allows you to still be able to drive, but you only have certain criteria and conditions that you can drive and you can do while you're driving. So at the time when I had got out, I'm like, fuck, I need to run up some money and shit, because even though I got them bands, I don't really like touching that. I only fuck with the profit and the money that I was already making. So, I ended up re-ing up, doing my thing and shit. So the bitch that I was fucking with, that ended up becoming an informant, I ended up serving her. She caught me allegedly they had me on 2 controlled buys for some weed at that, which is crazy. So, remind y'all again, I've already had the trafficking marijuana. So when I got served with a sealed indictment, and they came and picked me up, and I was on the news and shit, they ended up charging me with 2 counts of trafficking in marijuana stemming from allegedly both of them controlled buys. And then whenever they searched my house, raided my spot, they found a safe with some cash in there. And mind you, like I said, I didn't keep cash up on me like that unless I was paying bills or something. So my safe was just in there just in case the motherfucker wanted to try to steal, break into my crib. They only gonna get a couple of dollars. So they only caught me for like $1,400, but it was only for me paying my bills and they allegedly got like a gram of some marijuana. So instead of charging me with possession of marijuana with the 2 counts of trafficking in marijuana, they ended up charging me with 3 counts of trafficking. And again, me not knowing what I know now, I ended up pleading guilty because I'm thinking I'm just gonna be on probation. Didn't know how much time I was facing and none of that. So I had to go do 30 extra days. Once I pleaded guilty, I ended up coming home on probation. I'm back. When I come back on probation, I'm literally going back to what I was doing, what I know was good for me. I'm going back to it. So I'm out here back in the streets doing my thing and shit. And my lawyer, calls me and was like, hey, why haven't you reported to your probation officer? I'm like, what? I'm thinking I'm just on unsupervised probation. I ain't got to go report to no probation officer. So I'm already pissed anyways because, for one, I shouldn't have. I felt like I should not have had to go report to a probation officer. And for 2, I'm spending all this money, and I come to find out later when I ended up going to prison that I ended up pleading guilty to 10 years for all 3 of the cases that I was charged with. 10 years. So I'm already pissed off because I got all this time and shit. So long story short, fast forward it, I go to prison. I had an 18-year sentence, go to prison, I do my time, I get out, boom. Now, I'm a felon. Now, I done learned my lesson because, when you're just going back and forth to the county and you're not doing no time like that, Like, you might have some of them kids who be like, yeah, I went to the county, I done learned my lesson, I'm not doing this no more. But you got the other niggas like me, like, shit, county wasn't shit. I ain't really worried about it. This is all I'm thinking, like, shit, I'd never go to prison because it's marijuana. Let's be serious. I've never really heard nobody go to prison for marijuana. Now, I done seen people get fed cases dealing with marijuana, dealing with other controlled substances, but for marijuana alone, I never really heard of anybody getting any prison time. So, I learned my lesson. And in Kentucky, you got to do like 20% of whatever time that they give you. So I ended up having said and done, and I'll tell y'all about the other charges, and I'll talk about that on another episode of Real Talk. But, when I went to prison, I ended up having 4 counts of trafficking in marijuana, possession of a handgun by a convicted felon. They ended up giving me 18 years. All 3 of my trafficking charges are Class D felonies. And then the handgun is a Class C, so you facing 5 to 10 instead of 1 to 5. So I ended up copping pleas to 18 years. So they ran concurrent the gun charge and the weed with the time that I was already on probation with the 10 years over my head. They gave me 8 years plus the 10 to run it for a total of 18. So, like I said, in Kentucky, you got to do 20% before you're parole eligible. And inshallah, thanks to the utmost high, you feel me? Whenever I did my 3 years, 7 months, and it was time for me to go up for parole, I ended up making parole, coming home. So I made parole, came home, I learned my lesson, I started living a law, basically a civil life, law-abiding citizen, getting a job, doing my thing like that. And but when I came home, I lost everything. I had a female that I called my baby mama. We did our thing. We've been together for 10 plus years, and I really left her everything. So she was up when I left. Right before I came home, all my shit got sold. A lot of shit that I don't want to talk about right now, that I also talk about in another episode of Real Talk, happened. And I ended up losing everything. Had to come home. I went into a whole different city. Wanted to start over somewhere else in Kentucky. I had to be in a halfway house. And when I came home, I tried to get a job. Like I said, I've been trying to do the right thing. Like, I had to realize too, like, as I am a felon now, that I come home, that I done came home, started trying to do the right thing. And shout out to me, because I've been home for 7 months now, and it's been slow progress, but I have my mind clear at what I'm trying to do, what I want to do. I got goals and ambitions and stuff, which I had before, but due to me being incarcerated, it hindered my abilities to be able to do some of the things that I wanted to do before I was locked up. But I think came home, like I said, trying to better myself, do things the right way, and being a felon, and also being a felon and knowing why you was locked up, that you have a lot to offer, you have a lot of value, the jobs and stuff with being a felon, you can't have. Like, there's so many things that hinder you when you're trying to come home, do better for yourself, be able to provide, being able to take care of yourself, and really handle your responsibilities. It's like when you become a felon, it feels like the only thing that you can do is really start your own business or go back to doing what you was doing that got you locked up in the first place. Or, you know, you got to have a hell of a good trade that's going to be able to sustain the lifestyle that you have to go by. Like McDonald's and shit, working fast food is cool if you got a job, but you know, me being a felon and being convicted of what I was convicted of, a lot of jobs won't hire me. And a lot of residents now won't try to allow me to rent from them. You know, they take a look at my background and me being a felon, like I done found a job and I work in the management field as a technician. And so when I wanted to leave the halfway house that I was living at, you know, I went to this place and the rent was only $500. And I'm like, okay, cool. Because my checks was damn near $1,000, $1,500 every 2 weeks. So I'm like, all right, I will be good with being able to get back on my feet. Not only getting back on my feet, but, you know, sustaining being by myself. And I live by myself now, but, you know, my expenses would be a lot less, which will allow me to go out and get me a better means of transportation. I can really just, you know, check off some of them things that I needed to check off as far as coming home. And I learned that, you know, if I were to have these things checked off, it'll be easier for me to get some of the jobs that I want, because, you know, as I try to come home and do the right thing, a lot of these jobs, you know, they require you, like, for instance, I wanted to go into the hospitality field and be a caregiver. Now, you know, some jobs, they don't mind you being a felon. They'll still hire you, but you have to have your own means of transportation. And a lot of these jobs where I'm at, you know, they require you to have transportation, a reliable means of transportation. So as a felon and not being able to have your own means of transportation, that made things even more challenging. With that being said, not only are a lot of things more difficult for me to work as far as jobs and shit, like I can't, like the jobs that I want, the jobs like I know I'm good at, they won't hire me. So I had to realize, like, being a felon is it's not all it's cracked up to be. Like, being a felon, it fucks you up and a lot of things that you're trying to do. And it's so difficult because, you know, society, they want you to, even if you were to do a couple of years, it's so crazy because a lot of things change within a couple of years. So you gotta adjust. But I've always been a type of person to know how to adjust to everything that I've been put into. And when I was locked up, when I got incarcerated, I already knew how technology worked. Like, I was tech savvy. Like I told you, I've always been a smart, intelligent kid. So it wasn't as difficult for me to really get out and take care of my responsibilities. But I'm just giving y'all a brief synopsis of how life as a felon is and how difficult things can be. Because, like I said before, me renting a place, they look at my background, and for instance, from the place that I'm at now, I had got told that, you know, it'll be like 8 something for me to rent from these guys. They give second chances to felons, whoop the whoop. But they look at my background, and instead of me having to pay $800, $900, now I'm paying $1,000 a month. I'm over here paying $1,000 a month plus, everything else that comes with staying by living on your own. And then I don't know if I touch bases or with the other situation as far as the job that the crib that I was trying to get before, like I wasn't able to get that because they looked at my background. Yes, it's $500 a month. I could have got on my feet and shit, but they ended up not allowing me to rent from them based on the fact that what I was convicted of. And like I said, a lot of jobs and shit like that, they won't hire you based on your background. Even if you could be one of the most genuine, professional people, most intelligent people, a lot about the job, all that shit, it still don't matter because of the simple fact they looking at you basing whether or not they want to give you a job or not off the fact that what you was convicted of. So that's the crazy part about being a felon, and the ins and outs and how difficult it is actually being a felon, what life is like being a felon. And the moral of the story is, man, just stay. If you're going to do anything illegal, which I highly do not recommend and I do not condone anymore, because again, I'm living a better life. Moral of the story is, if you're going to do anything illegal, if you're going to, get your feet dirty and jump off the porch, make sure you know about what you're dealing with. About all the different type of possibilities, and always remember like what you can lose from it if you were to get caught. Like, learn the punishment, know the law, always have that money put back, and be prepared for when things go sideways. Like, I was always prepared anyways, but things that were out of my control when I got incarcerated is what set me back. But again, just make sure that you are always on your P's and Q's. You always set yourself up to win in the end. And like I said, stay out of fucking trouble. Like, just do the right thing, man. I don't recommend you doing anything illegal or nothing. I just want you to not become a felon. If you can hire you a lawyer, if you ever get in trouble, to drop your charges down to something where it's not gonna affect the rest of your life, I highly recommend you do that. Or shit, fuck it, if there's no beating the case or there's no negotiating down to where it's not gonna hinder you, take that shit to trial. Because either way it goes, you either gonna get some prison time, jail time, or it's gonna fuck your life up. So it's really a lose-lose situation anyway. So you might as well take your chances of either going to trial and possibly getting an acquittal, or taking a plea deal that could possibly be dropped down to a misdemeanor where it does not fuck your life up. So that's the moral of the story about, being a felon, the ins and outs of what it's like being a felon, and what the moral of the story is: do not become a felon, man. If y'all like this video, again, I want you guys to start liking, sharing, subscribing, following me up on all my social media platforms, and I'm going to just keep giving y'all great content, and y'all going to see me grow as I'm doing this, because I tried it before. I ended up being incarcerated. Now I want to try it again, but I also want to put more effort into these videos. And this is going to be raps, man. Thank y'all for tuning in to Real Talk Podcast, man. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all.